everyone. I just wanted to do a quick simple video that would help you get some ideas and utilize a method that I've kind of developed to help enhance your studying techniques and to really improve your ability to not only take information in but to retain it and be able to recall it when needed. With this, I want to give you or outline 4 simple steps that you can use that I've kind of developed over the past couple of years and have really helped my ability to learn and take in information. Just a little bit of background on myself. I am currently a PhD student working in a biomedical physiology program. I also have my bachelor's and master's in exercise physiology. Not to say that I'm a lifelong academic or anything of that nature. I took probably 4, maybe 5 years off between my bachelor's degree and starting my graduate education with my master's, where I was working in the real world. I tried to do some side businesses. I also enlisted the Army for a few years. So when I went back to graduate school, I pretty much had to teach myself how to learn all over again and how to study, which actually wasn't too hard because I never really had a good learning method or studying method to begin with, because to be honest, when I was an undergrad, I kind of screwed around like most people do and didn't put in a lot of effort because, you know, C's and D's get degrees, even though, no, I got a D in there too. But once I started up with graduate school, I was like, okay, I've already tried other careers. I've even tried the military, and that didn't work out due to some injury reasons. And because of that, I really had to make this count. It was really get the ball rolling with this, or I honestly wouldn't even know what I'd be doing today. I would have been completely lost if I had not got my shit together and worked at things out and improved my education at the master's level before now moving on to my PhD. So now the system I'm going to go over isn't necessarily anything that's backed with specific research. It's not like my system per se either. It's just something I've kind of developed over the years. I've kind of put it together on my own. There's little bits and pieces I've pulled from other people and other parts of learning theory and education theory to really put this together, and I'm really happy with it, and it really has enhanced my ability to actually, just sit down and get through information and to be able to retain it and utilize it. So before I go through these 4 steps that I'm going to lay out here in a little bit, I wanted to go over a couple of different tips, or just not necessarily tips, but general ideas or processes that you should run through when you're sitting down to study or while you're starting to study that can really help this process overall. Because now that you're learning about learning, you really want to get this system ingrained. You want to be able to do it without thinking, so that way you're not taking any of your effort away from whatever you're trying to learn or whatever you're trying to review and study on, and you can just apply all that effort to the material you're learning and not necessarily on making sure you incorporate all these different setups into these different methods, because you want all your brain power, all your focus to be on the material, not to be on any other side projects. And just note that this is going to take time. You're not going to watch this video, do these 4 steps, or do this general idea, and then just go out to the races and unlock new secrets of physics or set up your next billion-dollar business or anything of that nature. This is going to take time, and it's going to be very specific and very key on you relying and you studying an area that you're interested in. Learning something that you actually care about is going to be what lays the foundation to move forward, because if you're just trying to learn different information just for the sake of learning, you're going to get really bored really fast and you're not going to be able to hold your focus, and it's not going to be helpful. You can just think about all those courses in high school or college that you had to take that you really just hated, and you just went to class every day because you had to and not necessarily because you cared about the material. You don't want to do that now. You're on your own free time. You're trying to learn a new skill or learn a new technique. You want to put all your effort into that and not necessarily just going through the boring core stuff that you would have to do like you're in school. So first tip is to make sure you're removing all distraction. I know that sounds kind of obvious, but you really want to try to isolate yourself. Get yourself away from a TV, get yourself away from social media. Don't have your phone sitting out if you can. If you have the ability to completely just put your phone in a different room, make sure that you do that, or you can isolate yourself from other people. I know some people cannot deal with this because they have family obligations, work obligations, they have to stay plugged in all the time, and I understand that. But just when you're going to isolate down and study, try to do your best to make sure it's just you, your material, and nothing else, no outside distractions. Another tip that's really going to help facilitate this process is to try to develop a habit or a routine. So study around the same time of day if you can. I know that's not always going to be easy, that's not always going to be feasible, but if possible, try to make sure that you're always studying at the same time. So say you pretty much always have a free block of time from 5 to 6 p.m. or 5 to 7 p.m. Try to use that time to block out just for studying and reviewing information. information. Also, other small things you can do. You're someone who chews gum a lot. Make sure you're chewing the same type of gum every time you study, or you always have that piece of gum. Same thing with coffee, drinks, little snacks. Try to replicate whatever you're doing when you're studying each time, so when you go through that activity, your mind immediately thinks, okay, this is what I do. I always drink this type of coffee when I'm about to study, so now that I'm drinking this type of coffee, it must be time to study. You can start to develop those little, not necessarily muscle memory, but the same kind of concept. You just know this event means we're going to study, and it'll help you get in that mindset a lot easier and a lot faster. Also, another thing that can really help is if you study in the same area. So if you have a specific desk, or you like to go to the library, or you like to study at Starbucks, or whatever it is, try to always do it in the same area. That's just going to go along with repeating those habits of doing it at the same time, doing it with the same snacks or the same drinks or the same foods or the same gum, whatever. You want to replicate that environment as much as you can. And since I'm making this kind of on a trading channel initially, if you have the ability to study at whatever station or computer you use for trading, do that. If you always have your laptop and an additional monitor set up at a certain part of your house or a certain part of your office at work, depending on wherever you decide to trade from, try to replicate that and make that also your study zone. And if possible, I know this is kind of hard, make that exclusive for just trading and just studying, because if you can designate a zone, that's going to again just compound onto chewing the same type of gum or drinking the same coffee or doing the same type of day. Anything that can help develop that habit over time and can ingrain in your brain that this area, this time, these events, these things that I'm doing are dedicated to studying and trading, it will really help facilitate that process and really enhance your ability to get in the zone and to get into that studying mindset when you sit down and start that process. Another tip, kind of a major tip here, do not overconsume info. Do not try to sit down and say go through 10 video lessons and then read 4 books all in one day or in one sitting. That's going to be too much. You only have so much information you can take in your short-term working memory that can be encoded into your long-term memory, and that's going to vary from person to person, but once you hit that threshold, you're going to just start discarding and throwing out all that information because your brain's going to utilize it or recognize it as waste, and you're not going to retain it. So you want to make sure that you focus in on a key, if you're just starting with this, 2 to 3 concepts, try to limit it down to 30, maybe 40 minutes at a time, and then over time, once you start to feel more comfortable, you can feel yourself grasping things a lot easier, you can push that up to 4, 5, maybe even 6 chunks of information or 6 concepts and push that out to 1 to maybe 2 hours. Again, this is going to vary very much from person to person, and it's going to improve with time, but even if you are, on top of the world, you're learning everything with ease, you read it once and you just have it there forever, you're still going to eventually hit that threshold, and that's what you want to make sure that you avoid. Make sure you set time limits, take scheduled breaks, which I'll talk about here in a couple of minutes. So with all that said, all those little tips out of the way, we can go ahead and jump into the 4 steps to improve your memory retention and your learning ability to really enhance whatever education that you are trying to cover. I'm specifically making this for trading. I know I said that I was a PhD student. I'm going to be launching, a separate service in terms of tutoring for physiology and biology and exercise science. So I'm really going to take this video and dial it in for that here in the next couple of months over the summer. But right now, I really just want to give this out to people who are learning to trade. I also have started to day trade over, it'll be, I think, a year this month or a year next month. I don't remember exactly. But with that, it involves a lot of learning, a lot of education, a lot of grasping new information. And I'm not here to try to start my own trading service. That's not what I do. It's just something I want to have the skill of, to have money in the bank and to have a little bit extra job security. So if I end up in a situation where I'm not happy with my career, or I have to move careers, or there's some type of pay issue where I get injured and I can't go to work, I still have a secondary means of keeping my bills paid and keeping my family happy. So because of that, I've taken up day trading, and because that's not my sole focus, I have no intention here of creating a service. My sole goal is to try to just help newer or struggling traders, kind of get them up to speed as I am coming up to be speed myself. I'm not, a $1 million person. I'm not bringing down $1,000 a day with every trade, but I am slowly starting to find consistency. And just free plug, I have not been asked to do this at all. I am a member of the service Trick Trades, run by Pat Mitchell. So if you are interested in that, I'll put a link in my description. Again, I get nothing out of this. He doesn't even know I'm doing this. It's just a very good community that has really helped me learn on a much faster level, and utilizing these methods, I've really been able to enhance my trading skills over time. So with that long-winded introduction out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into the 4 steps for enhancing your trading and learning. So step 1, I just said dive in. Well, that's also step 1. Go ahead and dive into your material. Just sit down and go. If it's a video lesson, just start watching and taking notes. If you have to read something, start reading. Take notes. Read it again. Take more notes. Really just go in head first and do the damnedest you can to focus and get really deep into the material as fast as you can, as hard as you can. First step was pretty simple, just do it, just go through your information. The second step isn't necessarily a step as much as it is something that's just going to happen. I just labeled it a step because, it sounds good when you say you have 4 steps versus just things that happen when you study. It's going to be frustration. You're going to get frustrated. That's good, that's expected. Lean into that frustration. When you are starting to study and things just aren't sticking, you're reading it over and over and you constantly have to rewind that video lesson and watch it again and again just to get one sentence or one concept that it's just not sticking. Good. Lean into that. Let that frustration fuel you to the point where you just get so angry that you have to stop. That's good. That is part of this method, is to just dive in. Step 1, go as hard as you can, then get pissed off, get irritated, get mad at yourself because it's not working, because that is all going to feed back into the 4th step once you come back to studying. So before we get to the 4th step, we obviously have to go through the 3rd step, which is going to be walk away. So stop studying. Once you hit that frustration, once you've really dove into it and it's just making you angry, you can't look at this stuff anymore, and it could be 5 minutes in, 10 minutes in, 20 minutes in. It's going to vary from person. Stop. Get away from your computer. Get away from your material. Go do something else. And by something else, I don't mean sit down and watch TV. Don't play video games. Don't dick around on Facebook or Instagram. You really want to do something else that is engaging enough that it's going to get your mind off studying, but it's not mindless waste of time's activity. With that, you can go on a walk. You like to work out, you can go work out. It can be something as simple as making yourself lunch or dinner. Actually doing something that's physical and hands-on is going to be really helpful. It doesn't have to be something exhausting. You don't have to go deadlift 500 pounds or go run 7 or 8 miles straight through to get this to work. I'm not sure if this is myth or what, but there was always the story of Einstein. He would work on problems, he would get frustrated, then he would go row a boat out in a pond or a lake or whatever, and he would just think. So the concept still applies. You don't have to go find a rowboat in your nearest body of water and go out there. That's ridiculous. You don't need to do that unless you like rowing and you have your own rowboat and pond access. But what you really want to take out of that is to do something somewhat physical and go clear your mind. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as it is somewhat active. Get up, get moving, get that blood flowing. That's really going to enhance the 4th process when you come back. So that 4th step is going to be now to come back and just dive right back in. But this time you're going to ingrain those habits I was talking about with that earlier. So now's the time to have that same snack that you always have, to drink that same type of coffee, to chew the same gum, to do whatever it is you do that helps hey, it's study time. This is the time that you're going to implement those habits and those routines. Now, one thing that you're going to find, and you may not get to this stage the first or maybe even the second time, but I promise if you go through this, it will hit you. You're going to get that flow state, which is what it's sometimes often called. Other people just call it getting in the zone or getting dialed in. That's going to hit you 10 times easier than that first time when you were frustrated. That's going to get to you 10 times easier than that first time when you were frustrated. So in step 1 or step 2, when you're just diving in and you're trying to review your information and you're starting to get irritated and pissed off, why am I not grasping this? This is the time that you're not going to hit that, and if you do, just push through it a little bit. Just relax for a second. You don't need to go too head in, but once you get that dialed in state, once you get that flow state, that zoned in state, whatever you want to refer to it as, you are really going to be off to the races at that point. That's the time to really lean into it, really get into things. Now, when you hit this zone or you hit this state, you want to make sure that you have no additional distractions. If you feel the urge to check Facebook, if you feel the urge to, let me Google that, what's that mean? Fight it. Just let it go. Make a note of it. Do that later. That's for after the time you're studying, because you don't want to break that concentration, because once you really break it, if you're good at this, you can get, right back into that state and it won't bother you. But if you're struggling, if you have a hard time focusing, if you're really trying to learn something for the first time, over consuming information, like I said earlier, will sidetrack you and it will completely ruin your ability to learn and your ability to focus. Also, once you're in the state and you start to feel yourself hitting that frustration again, you're having to review something more than 1 or 2 times to really get it in your head, that means you're at your wall. That's fine. Stop. Shut it down from there. If you've only gotten through 30 minutes of material, that's fine, because now you've spent 30 minutes of hard focus on something, whereas before it'd have taken you an hour or 2 hours to get the same level of information to be retained and encoded into your long-term memory. So with that, once you hit your threshold, recognize it and stop. You can shut it down for the day. You can go back to step 3, do something else, get up and walk around, get away from your screens, get away from your study material, your videos, whatever it is, just get away from it for about 15, maybe even 30 minutes, just kind of depends on the person. Now, if you are feeling yourself get back into the zone, you come back, you sit down, you're ready to go again for another 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, or whatever, then yeah, go ahead, ride that back out. But if you sit back down and it's just not there, don't waste your time. Use that time to just, review what you already went over. Make sure that you've learned it to the best of your ability. That's going to be more beneficial than trying to, push forward and overconsume too much information, especially now that you're not in that hyper-focused zone. And that's it. So now you have all the secrets to the universe. But seriously, there is all there is to it. I know it sounds very simple, but the more you do this and the more you practice this, the more you get into these routines and these little 4 steps that I outlined, the easier it'll be to get focused and dialed in and retain that information. And you will spend less time actually worrying about consuming everything and just focusing on little bits and pieces and understanding them very well. So if you were to follow this method and you only study for, say, I don't know, an hour and a half or so every 3 to 4 days, or over a 3 to 4 day period, that's going to get much more out of your learning process than it is to grind 3-4 hours a day, every day, day in and day out. It's really about getting the most out of your time and the most out of your effort, and not just consuming the most amount of raw information. Now, make sure that when you're doing this, you note any little thing that either helps or distracts from your ability to perform. It's going to vary from person to person. I know myself, I like to go through that frustration phase in complete silence, no music, no background noise, nothing. Silence really bothers me, so it just kind of, helps enhance that process of being irritated and being able to overcome it. Also, once I'm going into my actual focus stage, so stage 4, I will over consume coffee. I'm really big on taking in caffeine just because I handle it very well. Some people, if they have more than 1 cup or 2 cups, they feel their mind start to race, they can't focus, they can't really accomplish anything. So it's really going to vary from person to person. So you really have to know what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and really just kind of make those little tweaks over time. If you think about it as an athlete would, you want to practice how you play. So for, again, this is a trading video, you want to study how you would trade. So being in that state, whatever you do to trade, do that to study. If you're going to drink coffee, if you're going to chew gum, if you're going to eat breakfast, if you're going to be in a certain area, do that to study. Then when you sit down to trade, that will come back to you so much easier, and it will help enhance the process. And repetition, if you go back to the athletic analogy, I was a sprinter. I ran track for, most of my life, high school, college, the whole 9, actually. I know it's the whole 9, but it was about 11, 12 years. I would always, do the same warm-up, do the same specific warm-ups, do the same little routine. If you ever know any track runners or sprinters or any type of athlete, you know that they get very superstitious, but that superstition is helping you get into that hyper-focus zone each and every time. And that can really help you when it comes to studying as well. The concepts of learning for skill acquisition and learning for memory acquisition are going to be exactly the same. So just if you develop a routine and it works, make a note of it, keep doing that. If you try something new and it just doesn't work, don't worry about it. Sometimes you have to just try things and it's not going to work. So your personal experience is really going to come into enhancing and dialing this process in for what works for you. Also, one other thing I want to throw in, almost forgot about. In terms of taking what you've learned, your newfound skill, your newfound material, your newfound knowledge, and actually cementing it into long-term memory and applying it and be able to use it in real life. The best thing that I have found, and I've discussed this with a lot of other people that I work with and a lot of other people I've conducted research with and things of that nature, is to vocalize it out loud, what you've just learned, in your own words, in your own voice, in your own metaphors and analogies, as if you were teaching someone else. So if you can teach someone else something, even if it's something you barely understand, and you can break it down into not only layman's terms, but complicated terms, and you can understand what those terms mean, so you have to be able to explain it to a complete novice, and you have to be able to explain what you're talking about to an expert as well. If you can do that out loud, you will enhance your ability to learn and understand information tenfold, I promise. Even if it's just you pacing around in circles, saying things out loud, talking to yourself as if you were teaching to an imaginary class or explaining it to an imaginary person. It will help reinforce everything you've just learned in your ability to apply it and recall it in the future. Another good thing about that is once you get to the point that you can't explain something clearly, or it's a concept you thought you really understood and you're saying it out loud and it just doesn't make sense, that denotes you have a weak area, and now you can go back and review that concept, or the next time you study you can review that specific information. And then instead of wasting your time going through the entire study session again, you can just review lightly and hone in on that one area that you're not strong in and improve it. And over time, if you can vocalize out loud the information you're learning as if you're going to explain it to someone else in your own words, you will be 10 times more knowledgeable on that subject than if you were to just watch a video, read something, take some notes, and then be like, yeah, I got it. Say it out loud. Let your own voice really reinforce it to your mind, and I promise it's going to improve your ability to retain information and to apply those newfound skills. So if you're, say, discussing support and resistance, pull up a chart, mark some support and resistance, and then go over that as if you were giving your own little video lesson to someone else. If you want to record that and listen to yourself and make notes like, hey, this didn't sound right, oh, that's definitely wrong, that's going to be helpful as well. You don't have to send them out to anyone. You don't even have to really recall them yourself. If while you're saying those words out loud, you can recognize what makes sense and what doesn't, and adjust your information accordingly. So that's everything I got. I hope that wasn't too overwhelming or too confusing. I know I get a little bit rambly when I start talking about things. When I present, sometimes I do that and I get off on tangents and don't really realize how much time I'm wasting. So if anything doesn't make any sense, feel free to leave a comment below, and I'll be more than happy to try to address your concerns and make anything clearer than I haven't already. As I mentioned before, I'm a member of Trick Trade, so if you're looking for a new education service, please check the link in the description, go check them out. There's also a lot of free videos on YouTube from their channel as well. I'll try to link that if I can, not really sure how linking stuff in YouTube works exactly yet. But watch those videos, if they really speak to you, come check us out. It's a great service. Again, I'm not receiving anything for this. I'm not a moderator, a service provider. I'm simply just, a dues paying member. And I follow the market or follow the education that Pat gives out every morning and every day. And that's how I've been able to improve my trading over the past several months. Also, if you are a Trick Trades member and you have any additional questions and you don't want to leave a comment below, my username in there is Dan7. I always make the 320 claw, so if you don't know my username but you know that, you can reach out to me through DMs on there, and I'd be more than happy, to give you any additional insight or any additional information or answer any questions in there as well. So if you liked this video, thumbs up it. Like it, subscribe. I'm not really, like I said, going to be making a trading service page or anything of that. I'm just going to try to relay information that really I felt would have helped me when I was starting out, before I kind of came into my own. Again, I'm not, the best trader in the world by any means. I'm still, finding that consistency and learning to be profitable on a daily basis. So I'm going to try to just use this channel to not only go over some trades that I thought like, hey, this is really good. I think someone else may be able to benefit from seeing what I saw, or trades that went really bad, and identifying my own mistakes. Because again, like I said a few minutes ago, vocalizing and saying what you've done right and wrong in your information out loud helps reinforce it. So I'm going to kind of use this channel to reinforce my own learning, and to also hopefully help anyone that might be new or struggling, to bring them a little bit more up to speed. Because there is a lot of information out there that's just pure garbage. So hopefully, if you've made it to this end of the video, you've enjoyed it and you've actually learned something. And again, don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what I'm putting out here. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below, and I'll do my best to answer it as quickly as possible. Thanks.